what is a console? It feels like that question is becoming more and more ambiguous over time, because there's a lot of debate as to what is and what isn't. If you're someone that has been following me online for a long time, you may remember back in 2017 when I did like a 2-hour debate with another creator named Fringy, and one of the main points of that debate was arguing whether or not the Steam machine, meaning the original one from years ago, not the new one that's coming out, the original, was a console or a PC. And my main argument was that a console already is a conventional PC, built with most of the same parts, and yes, while it has a more restricted ecosystem compared to even Windows, where Xbox, PlayStation, Nintendo has a lot of control over your experience, at the end of the day, the whole point and purpose of a console is to be a more simple, user-friendly experience to play video games as opposed to using a desktop computer. Now, the thing about the Steam machine, whether we're talking about the old one or the new one that's coming out, is that it has full PC capabilities in the sense that you can just use it as a straight-up desktop and computer, which you cannot do for a PlayStation and Xbox. You can download any application you want for whatever purpose that you want and perform any task that you want to do on these Steam machines, which you can't do on a Nintendo or a PlayStation or an Xbox. These are devices where you can pretty much just do gaming, and under the terms of that console manufacturer, you can't go outside of that ecosystem. So yeah, I can understand that distinction in that situation. At the same time, though, I think the Steam machine can be viewed as a console because that's exactly what it's trying to be at the end of the day. I mean, when you think about the Steam Deck, people view that and identify it as a handheld device that competes with the Nintendo Switch rather than a portable PC. But that's exactly what it is, and it has the same exact functionality as a Steam machine, where you can do a bunch of things with the Steam Deck and use it as a PC. You can dock it and use the web browser, and you can use Linux or even download Windows if you want to, and it's just a straight-up PC that happens to be able to play games. But no one really identifies it as that, even though it's exactly what it is. So why would the Steam machine not be considered a console, but the Steam Deck can be considered a handheld console? Makes absolutely no sense. Like, why are people having different definitions for different things based on how they feel? But there's a lot of debate and a lot of back and forth in the gaming community as to whether or not you can consider the new Xbox console to actually be a console, because one of the main selling points is that it can just straight up run Windows and can launch PC games that are not necessarily from the Xbox store on the Xbox console. And they also plan on adding the Xbox dashboard and a full Xbox console experience to Windows 11. So you see how the lines get more and more blurred. But the truth is, they've been blurred for a lot longer than people realize. The PlayStation 3 is probably the best example of this, where it was obviously a console. It was the PS3. The PS3 is a console. Everyone acknowledges that, obviously. But remember, with the PS3, you were also able to install Linux and basically use your PlayStation 3 console as a desktop computer with almost no restrictions. Obviously, a few years later, they removed that feature, and that's what led to the PlayStation hack of 2011, if y'all are familiar with the events that transpired back then. But yeah, up until Sony removed support for it, which obviously people were able to jailbreak and restore that functionality, but yeah, you could just straight up use your PS3 as a desktop computer with the same features and functionality as you would expect from a PC. As a matter of fact, there are a lot of companies that used PS3s as data centers because of its PC functionality. So this isn't just some random thing that I'm making up. Like, the PS3 pretty much was a PC by definition. So again, these definitions are becoming more and more arbitrary and less consistent, because you can't say the new Xbox is not a console because it can run Windows and it can do stuff that a PC can do, while also saying the PS3, which was capable of running Linux, is a console and not a PC. And you also can't really say the Steam machine is not a console, it's a PC, but the PS3 is a console and not a PC. I understand the PS3 had certain limitations because of its architecture, Like, you couldn't just, like, run games through Steam, for example, but that had more to do with hardware limitations than anything else. So it's like saying that an entry-level PC that costs, like, $200 and can't run any games at all, well, that's not a real PC because it can't run games. You know what I mean? So these definitions are becoming less and less meaningful over time. The way I would define it would be simply be a device with a more simplistic form factor than a conventional desktop PC that is primarily used for gaming. And I don't think it necessarily has to be an open or closed ecosystem for it to actually be a console versus a PC. I think the form factor and the way that the device is used primarily for gaming, that's the main way to distinguish a console from a PC, kind of like how a mobile phone is a handheld PC. It could function and do almost all the same things that a desktop computer can do with Android or iOS, but people don't consider your phone to be a PC. No one calls their phone a PC, but functionally, it pretty much is. But it's that tiny form factor with the touchscreen and the apps and everything, that entire experience is what defines a mobile phone versus a PC. So I would say it's a thing that should ultimately be celebrated, not turn into a flame war about, oh, what is better, PC or console gaming, when consoles do things that PCs can do. You can't just say, oh, but it's not a console, it's a PC now, so it's part of PC gaming, and it's not an actual console anymore, it's a PC. Like, it's stupid. It's a stupid argument and stupid conversation in the grand scheme of things. We should be happy that consoles are being more open and free, and that they're actually allowing you to do more with that device than you previously ever could, in the case of the Steam Machine and the next-gen Xbox. So how would you define a console? Would you define a console as a closed-loop ecosystem where Sony, Microsoft, Nintendo has full control over experience and you're restricted as to what you can do, and because the Steam Machine and potentially the next-generation Xbox are more open, well, you should be able to call them PCs because they're less restrictive, and a console is inherently a restricted and closed-loop experience. Well, that argument kind of falls on its face, too, because when you think about a home-brewed console or a jailbroken console, then that removes all the restrictions that the console manufacturer put in place. Like, think of the Wii, the Wii U, PlayStation 3. I'm even seeing some jailbroken PS4s now, and Xbox Series X consoles in dev mode running emulators. Like, so are those because they're being opened up and homebrewed by the community and are now no longer restricted? Then it's no longer a console? Like, it's a weird arbitrary thing and a concept that people are holding onto and should probably let go of at this point. But if there is a distinction that is still to be made and is necessary, yeah, I would define it by form factor, just like how you separate every other type of device by form factor, like a phone, or a tablet, or a desktop, or a laptop, or a handheld, or a console. You know what I mean? So that's how I would approach defining a console versus a PC. But those are my thoughts. I want to hear yours in the comments down below. As always, thank you all for watching, and I will catch you guys later. I'm interested to see what your definitions of a console are, and how they may differ from my own. It is a very interesting conversation.